Einstein was a vivid dreamer. The periodic table was dreamed. Cher dreamed her outfits. I've dreamed full projects into existence. Google was a dream by Larry Page. And after he dreamed it, he made it. So, like, we're talking about dreams as this like metaphorical space where we're trying to like figure out the messages, and it's kind of like
Mhm.
confusing. We have to learn the language of our dreams, and it's all shrouded in mystery. But sometimes it's like, boom, here's your massive download idea.
Yeah.
And it's like, what say you about that? Because that's amazing.
Oh, I love it. That's where I get into the intention setting and stuff like that. It's just like it's even to the point where it's just like you can dream up anything that you really truly want.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Ethereal Explorer podcast. I'm your host, Amy. I have a friend of mine, Emma Hogan, here, and Emma is a multi gifted person. I don't even honestly know how to encapsulate what to say you do, but I mean, like, energy healer, just multi gifted in so many different ways. And recently, you were developing a dream journey course. And when I saw that, I was like, hello, would you like to be on my podcast today? I'm so
Well,
fascinated by dreams. And so, why don't you introduce yourself and try to define whatever, whatever the thing
oh
is that
God. Yep.
I know it's a lot. You're multi talented, but
Well,
yeah.
we'll throw it in. Hi, I'm Emma Hogan. I am a Reiki practitioner, tarot oracle reader, as well as channeler of the lovely spirit. I do a lot of dream work. A lot of the work that I do is both the subconscious as well as the conscious side. It's energetic, it's spiritual, it is a mix of everything. And then I try bringing a very logical, grounded approach to a lot of what I do. So it's more so how do we apply it into our everyday life, the spiritual within the mental and emotional world, and just the world we live in on a physical plane. So it's a bit of mix of everything. So I think that would be kind of the titles.
I like what you said about like bringing sort of a logical approach to it because a lot of this
Mm,
stuff is really like in the energetic, unseen type of world, and it's hard to bring people along on the journey of what this is and
mhm.
how you can even make use of it in any kind of way. So I think a lot of the questions that I have about dreams today are sort of in more of the practical sense because it's really fun to talk about them and analyze them and stuff. But like, what is that? What is the value of that, right?
Mhm.
So I have some like really juicy, awesome questions that I'm dying to ask that maybe like
I love
aren't
it.
the normal type of question, but I do think that it would be useful for us to start out with just establishing like what is a dream? And I know it sounds like a dumb question because it's
No,
like
no dumb
we all know,
questions here.
but like, right? It's like, are dreams projections from our subconscious mind, or is it like our spirit traveling to other dimensions or planes? Or is it both? Or like, where do we go? Are we gone? Are we here? Like, in your school of thought, what is happening here?
I love this question because I think it's like one of those things where there's no right answer when it comes to dreams. Because I'm like, first of all, you have to keep in mind that everyone has completely different dreams, and their dream worlds are completely different as well. There are very like core, I guess you could say, like mindsets around it of what dreaming is. But the thing is, I'm like, how I dream, how you dream are going to be completely different, as well as like there's different varieties of types of dreams as well. Just pure sleep dream. There's lucid dreaming. There's getting into your nightmares, which is a whole other span. But then I'm like, most of it is coming from the subconscious itself. I would say 90% of dreams, from what I've traced in my own dream practice, I guess you can call it, is that I'm like, most of it actually comes from your subconscious itself. there's been very few people who can do premonition dreaming. It's like I have spoken to people who have had those experiences. I'm like, those are a little more far and few between, I find, with dreamers. So most of it is coming from your deep subconscious. You will be able to also dive into astral planes with it, depending on where you are. You can get into lucid dreaming. You can get a blend. Sometimes you can get a blend of the
Yeah.
subconscious. You can get the astral planes. You can get diving into just the psyche of your own, what's going on as well. And that is all very dependent on what you are working on internally. If you go into just unpacking like that day that happened for you in the subconscious, it's like diving into like, okay, what do I have to go into internally to be able to process this? And then you can get into the lucid dreaming of like, okay, I just want to have fun and go out into the world and see what there is. Though it could also be just a projection of the mind itself, pushing itself out of the body and thinking that it has more information, because I'm just like, and taking in everything that has to be like, oh, I'm in my living room right now, but my mind is out here doing this other thing.
Yeah.
So I think it's a blend. I don't think there's one right answer, and I think depending on what you are needing internally, it shifts. So it depends on if you need to go to the astral planes, or if you need to dive into your subconscious, or if it's like you just want to have fun and like jump out of the body, or it's like if the nightmares aspect, it's like, are there fears that you're having to dive into that it's just like you're
Mm.
being brought to that dimension, if you will,
Right. I
if that
think
makes
those are
sense.
really yeah, no, that actually explains it perfectly because I think like as I've been paying attention to my dreams more, I'm noticing the difference in quality. Like
Hmm.
if you have never really paid attention to your dreams, you just assume they're like all of one type, but actually what you've
Hmm.
described is resonating. It's like, okay, yeah, there are different qualities of dreaming.
Hmm.
And yeah, and that whole thing of like sometimes you feel like maybe you're in another dimension or you're at it's an astral situation, but actually it's just a projection of your mind. So sometimes it can be hard to discern what's happening, but I just think it like literally everything else in life, the more you pay attention to it and spend time with it, the more you start to speak its language and
Yeah.
be able to discern what's happening a little bit more. Are there dreams that are just total nonsense, or does every dream have some kind of meaning?
Oh, that's a great question. My belief is like every dream has a meaning behind it. It's like, and the thing is, it's like even if you're just clearing away stuff from your system, it's like that still has a purpose. It might seem like nonsense to you because you're like, well, why did I think of X, Y, and Z? That makes no sense. I didn't even think of it, know of it. It's not even on my radar kind of idea. But it's just like maybe it's your subconscious just being like, oh yeah, clear that out. We don't need that kind of idea. So it's like it could be just that it's being brought up to clear out. Though I'm like, the deeper you go into your dream work, I find that you actually do dive deeper into the subconscious, and it's like taking the general theme of what was being brought forward, but then also paying attention to the smaller things as well as what was going forward. So I'm like, I feel like none of it's nonsense, but at the same time, like it could be just that you're not supposed to pay attention to it when it comes to the subconscious clearing away things as well. Usually 90% of the time, it does usually mean something that's going on in your
Mhm.
actual living, waking life.
Okay, because I've been having this experience recently where I was like, in
Let's get
preparation
into
for
it.
this conversation, I was like, well, I better like do some dream journaling so I have like
Mm-hmm.
some idea of what. Okay, so I started writing down my dreams and then it became like kind of overwhelming because I had like seven dreams one night and they all
Mm-hmm.
had so much detail. And I'm like, this is taking me so long to document. And then after documenting it all, I'm like, now I have to look in to all this minute detail. And like, there was literally like 150 things I could have, looked up the meaning of. And I'm like,
Yeah.
this is a big project, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so I think to satisfy the overwhelm that might happen if people are doing this is like maybe just zoom out a little bit and just look
Yeah.
at the overall theme of what's happening, like you said.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't matter if the dog had a collar on and if the
Yeah.
dog had like a funny bark. It's just okay, there was a dog. Okay, just leave it at
Mm-hmm.
that for now because like sometimes there's so much detail.
Yeah. You can get
Yeah.
more into the details after you've gone ahead and gone into the bigger dream itself. And the thing is too, it's just like when you start opening up the dream world too, they're going to give you absolutely everything. Like they're like, "Oh, she's paying attention here." And you're just like,
That's what
"Okay, whoa,
happened.
whoa, whoa." Yeah. I was like, when it comes to it, I'm like, for you, what I would recommend is just like being like, okay, like, could we focus on X, Y, or Z? Because the thing is, it's like, if not, if you just say, like, okay, I'm ready to dream, they're like, okay, are you sure?
That's what, I know. I was going to ask you about that. So it's like you can set an intention when you're falling asleep. Because this is what I did was literally, I was like, okay, I'm falling asleep and I want to remember my dreams. Because like my dreaming style is like a lot of the times I don't remember them, or there was like one and it was really fuzzy.
Mm,
And so when I started deliberately trying to remember them, it worked right away. Just me falling asleep with the intention of that in my mind. And then I got this like overwhelming dump of like crazy dreams. And then after a few nights, and I was like, oh my God, this is too much. So I was falling asleep and I was like, can I just like have one? Like,
mhm,
let's just do one and like figure out the thing I need to like see the most and just
mhm,
focus on that and make it simple. And like I kind of went in with that request and then it worked. And so
mhm.
is that something that like in your dream journey course and all that you're building in is like almost like how to like set an intention when you fall asleep?
Yeah, so setting intention, I would highly recommend for anyone who's opening their dream practice because it gives the subconscious a place to go. It gives spirit somewhere to go, and it gives everything like a actual goal point. So it's like
Mhm.
you can go in just like blind and just see what shows up. But the thing is, you'll get that overwhelmness of just like, well, she wants it all, so here, we'll just give her it all kind of idea. Whereas when you start building the intention, it gives, oh, okay, she wants to focus on this. We can do that. And so it actually allows the brain and spirit to actually get focused on the conscious side of what needs to come forward. So it's like you can get as specific as like, hey, can I just dream one nice dream tonight? Um, so I'm like, and then you could do what I do and just go, okay, I'm working with this, 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 and this. Like, how can I work with this? Like, I need a new job. Like, where should I start
Mm.
looking, or what should I start looking into? Or, my partner and I are having a lot of fights. How do we continue to like open up to more better communication? Or it's like, and you can get very specific with it, and then having to decipher what comes through is always the fun part afterwards of setting the intention. But you have to remember your intention, which the dream journal comes in handy, where it's just like writing down what you have specifically that night to be able to like, hey, this is like what I want to focus on, and then writing the dream out for that, and then see where it aligns to the intention that you've set. But I'm like, it's, yeah, I highly recommend intentions. Though I'm like, there's been times where it's like, if you find that the intention's not being followed through, I'd recommend kind of like, for instance, it's like you set your intention, you're like, this is what I want to focus on, and you're getting some weird ass dream out of it, being like, yeah, I have no idea what that means. You can actually ask to be more specific as well, to be like, hey, can you be a bit more clear on what this is coming through? And then it's, yeah, and like you can even get as specific as like, if I'm supposed to take this job, show me a dove in my dream, or if I need
Ooh,
to
that's juicy.
focused and like if I'm not supposed to have this job, like show me a rose kind of idea. And then you can gotta get
Right.
very very specifics within the dreams as well to be able to help your subconscious be like, no, no, we really want this, or no, 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 like it's not my favorite thing. And if you don't receive any answer as well, it's like being like, okay, I can relax a bit more. And same with just even just like how many dreams you receive. It's just like, hey, can I do one, two dreams? It's like, oh yeah, okay. Like, they were like I'm literally hearing Spirit being like, she wanted a lot of dreams. Like she says she wanted a dream. We're giving her all the dreams we can give her. So I'm like, maybe they were giving you absolutely everything to be like, oh, she wants to learn about dreams here. Like we'll give her absolutely everything we have about dreams.
Yeah. I mean, it was a good experience because I realized that we have the power to just connect to that if we feel like
Mhm.
it. And I didn't even know that before. I was like, holy shit, that's a thing. Okay, good to know. And then yeah, and then that was a really good answer on like one of my questions was can we bring those specific things we're working
Mhm.
on into our dream space? And
Oh,
that actually
100%.
makes it really practical and it like really it has a lot this whole dream space then when you can start to communicate with it uh it's like it sounds a lot like other forms of divination in a way, like even just like you're pulling tarot cards and you're asking for
Yep.
clarifiers and you're like
Yep.
yeah, but it's almost like developing the language that so your conscious world and your subconscious world can speak and problem solve.
And that's, well, and that's exactly it. It's giving it a voice. It's like it's giving your subconscious a voice. Because the thing is, it's like our subconscious, a lot of people have a hard time listening to that inner voice inside of them. They're like, well, it said this and it said this, but then I'm getting the information from the outside. I'm getting the information from my friends and family. I'm getting all these outlets. And so it really connects you to that deeper inside and that deeper truth of like what's going on internally. Because the subconscious isn't only just bringing what it is from the brain, but it's bringing it from the heart as well and the body. So it's just like those sensations from the body that you feel, it's bringing it up into more of a mental scape as well, so that you can actually make more cohesive decisions based off of the whole internal system rather than just, oh, well, my intuition said it. Was like, well, what about the body? What about the subconscious and all of that within inside of it too?
I feel like I just had like a big aha moment. I'm gonna run it by you. Okay.
Yeah, let's hear it. Let's hear it. It's funny because my ears started ringing just as you like went.
One of my questions was going to be, and this is an unfair question to ask, but like,
No, no.
why is the dream world and your subconscious so like artistic and metaphorical? I'm like, why can't you just come out and say yes or no or tell me the thing? Like be like, this person doesn't serve you anymore. Like why can't it just tell you what it's thinking rather than like shrouding everything in mystery and like weird metaphors and stuff? But what you just said about like your subconscious being connected to also your heart and like other energetic bodies you have that don't necessarily, this is my aha thing, is like
I love it. No,
they
I'm
don't
here.
necessarily like speak the language of the logical three dimensions. Like it's a language being translated through like
Through
a
feeling,
translator
through,
that
yeah.
doesn't really, have the right language connection to
Hmm.
you, right?
No, it's
So is
exactly
that,
that.
do you have any other ideas? Like, because I think that's a burning question. It's like, why are we like, oh, there's an apple in my dream, like, and I have to figure out what that means, like,
Hmm.
you know,
I think the thing is too, it's like even think about that where it's like, we're like, oh, I have to figure that out. Where it's like when we're navigating from an intuitive, a emotional, and like a very heart centered practice, it's like the mind actually kind of gets in the way a little bit because the thing is the mind gets too much like, well, it has to be X, Y, Z, blah, 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 this equals that, da, 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 where the body's like, it just feels good. Apple tastes good kind of idea. Where it's just like we try
yeah,
to overcomplicate it a lot of the
yeah,
times where it's like, and I agree because I'm like a lot of people. I'm like when it comes to like, well, why it has to be so mystical and magical? It's just like you're trying to like communicate from the body, which the body doesn't know words. Like it does in one sense, but it knows feelings. It knows like I know how to move forward. I like it's very, I don't know. It's more of a primal movement, whereas it's like in the heart, it's more of like a like, oh, it's gonna be like this, and it feels so lovely. It feels like eating a what is it, a warm apple pie kind of idea. So the heart gets a little more romantic, I find. And then the brain wants to be like, okay, yeah, but like, how do you cook the pie first? Like, we need to get from A to Z here. Like, how do we get there? And so that's why I think you have that big connection with inside of it, if that helps. But yeah, I
yeah, no,
completely agree with what you're saying because I'm like, it's exactly that. It's just a conversation between the whole entire body, and then you're having to figure out your whole entire system's conversation within
yeah,
one picture moving.
yeah. And
Well,
so
yeah.
like, if I was like here, I was actually studying remote viewing, which also combines your subconscious mind with your conscious mind, like creating a connection between the two where they can
Hmm.
trade information and learn the same language. And
Yeah.
um, they were saying that, like, I don't know what the percentage is, or if you can even assign a percentage to this, but like 90% of your life is existing subconsciously.
Hmm.
And like a huge amount, like even in your waking day. This surprised me and I really had to think about it because basically it seems right because in your waking day and even right now the amount of input that I'm consciously aware of is really small. It's like my computer screen, you, our conversation, like, and a
Mhm.
few things around me. And the rest of my world is being absorbed subconsciously.
Yeah.
So we're aware of everything, but we're only very consciously aware of almost like directly the thing we're interacting with.
Mm.
And so then if, a large percentage of what's happening in your life is happening outside of the awareness of your conscious mind, then that seems like when you sleep, there's this big filing system going on because it's like it's
Mhm.
collected so much information.
Mhm.
And and then I wanted to ask about the subconscious, like as far as like your spirit goes, or whatever people call it, like the energy that is
Mhm.
you beyond your body. Does that is this like does this question make sense? Does your spirit reside mostly in your subconscious, or is it just kind of everywhere? And I'm asking this because
Ooh, that's really a good question. Okay, yeah, okay. Go on, go on.
yeah, why am I asking this? I'm asking it because if your dream world is your subconscious unfolding, I'm just wondering if it's really spirit led, like who's in the driver's seat of that, is basically
Mm.
your energy essence,
Oh,
your spirit, right?
like more on the spirit side or more on the subconscious side? And like, are you trying to divvy them up?
I guess. Okay, so is your subconscious mind, I think this goes back to the question is like, are your dreams a projection of your subconscious mind, or are they your spirit traveling to other places, or are they both? So maybe my question is, I'm realizing it's complicated in a
Yeah.
way.
It's all connected. And like your body, your mind, your spirit, it's all connected, right? We try to divvy it up, right? And the thing is, it's like subconsciously, spirit can reside in the heart, it can reside in the mind, it can reside everywhere, but it's all connected. The only thing
Okay.
that it attaches to the body when we first arrive in this world, when we first take our breath, right? I don't think it's one system working over the other. I think it's
Yeah.
like they're all connected because it's like the body's needing to rest. I'm like, you wouldn't be able to dream unless the body was sleeping, right? Well, unless somebody out there in the world can do that, I'd be mad impressed, and also tell me all about it because I'm curious how that works. But I'm like, the body needs to be sleeping for you to go ahead and dive into those planes. Though the spirit needs the access from the body and from the mind to be able to process the information that's coming forward. I'm like, if you're just rolling around in the spiritual world, I'm like, you might as well be right up there with air, if you will, even though it's much grander than that. But I'm like,
Because your body and your humanness
yeah.
grounds like all of that.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. So, and I'm just like, and the subconscious is just what's going on in this actual internal world. Whereas a
Mhm.
spiritual connection, you're connected to everything all at once, into the big consciousness. Because I'm like, when we dream, we also connect into other people's dreams as well occasionally.
Ah,
I've had it where it's just like, oh, I dreamt about you. And I'm like, oh, that's weird. So did I. And this is rare. Most of the time, when people dream of other people, it is the reflection of them that they need to see. That's why it's like your own practice is so important of what's yours and what somebody else's. And the thing is, it's like that goes into mind, body, and ego, which is like spirit and ego on a whole other scale. Because I'm like, you get spirit and you get ego, and I'm like, ego is like, this is me, this is my body, I am safe, I am physical, this is my contribution into the world. Where spirit's like, but we're all connected and all love, and we just want to go do this and this. So it's like, it's you need the balance of the two to be able to process the information that you're receiving from the greater. The conscious we're just aware of. The subconscious is just everything we're not aware of, but it's
yeah.
coming from the same place.
Okay. You just mentioned that it seems possible that you could enter someone else's dream space, which would kind
Yes.
of indicate it kind of indicates that the dream space exists in a way
Yeah.
that can be entered. So it's like an energetic space that other
Well,
energy can
I
come
would call
into.
it just, it's just like the same as like our everyday waking wandering life. Um for instance, it's just like wandering. It's just another world you walk into kind of idea, where it's just like we have connections with certain individuals. And like I've met people, like, I don't know if you've had it, where it's just like you meet random people. You're like, I don't even know who that person was in my dream, but they were there kind of idea. If you have an open connection, you're able to jump into other people's dreams. Though I'm like, it's very, you would always have to bring it back to what's the projection I'm putting on, what's what I'm trying to learn from this person internally before you start considering if that person was actually in your dream or not. It's kind of the
Mm.
last place I would tell people to go ahead and do, because I'm like, it, you have to really like know what it is internally first going on. That's where I'd get into like more of the protection that I have in my course, where it's like I have it where, oh, this goes into a story time. Are you ready for this?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, because I'm just like, I was in England with my ex fiance at the time, and I was sleeping in my uncle's bed because the house was small. There wasn't many beds, and he was being very, very courteous and a good host, and offered up his bed for us, and it was very sweet. Though I was uncomfortable, so it's interesting because I'm like, I was uncomfortable a little bit of like, oh my God, I'm taking your bed, but like, thank you, it's so sweet of you. We ended up going to sleep in this bed. Now, I've had experiences in this house a few times, which I was like, I was a little uncomfortable at times. I'm like, there's something up with this house. I couldn't really figure it out. And this was, I would say, too, on my like earlier stage of like my spiritual journey, if you will. Um, and what happened was I fell asleep. We went to sleep that night, and I was sleeping on the one side of the bed, on the right side of the bed. My partner was on the left. And all of a sudden in my dream, there's a shadow just standing next to the bed. And all of a sudden, I couldn't speak, I couldn't talk, but I was like, get out. I'm like, you're not supposed to be in here. I'm like, you're in my dreams. Like, you need to get out. And then I woke up, and then all of a sudden he was closer to me. He was like, this presence was even closer to me. I was still dreaming, I realized. I was like trying to scream now. I'm like, get out. What are you doing? I'm trying to wake up. Like, get out. And once again, I screamed in my dream, being like, get out. And I woke up again, turned over, and the shadow was next to my partner at the time. And I was like freaking out at this point. I woke up one more time within the dream, and my partner at the time, he turned over, and there was just a black face, and that was the shadow that was next to me. And I remember waking up and screaming, being like screaming, and finally being able to speak in my dream, being like, get out, you're not supposed to be here, like, it's like you need to leave kind of idea. And I remember seeing in the shadow, I believe, leaving through the door. Now, that last time, I finally woke up, and I was like petrified at this point, because I'm just like, oh my God, absolutely. Like, I tried waking up 4 times in my dream, and you're very powerful in your dreams, but when you haven't had the thought patterns to be able to be like, you can wake up at any time, and you haven't taught yourself that when you've had these experiences, you can actually get trapped in a loop.
Mm.
And it's like these presences can actually keep you there, if you haven't gained the awareness to be able to be like, no, 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 you have boundaries just as much in the real world as you do in the dream world. And so in the end, I ended up waking up. I was frazzled. I think my partner woke up because I had to see if it was him. I think that was the thing. I was like, I had to see if he was no longer a black face. I woke him up, and I was like, we need to get out of the room. I need to like clear some air kind of idea. And so I got upstairs. We went downstairs. I just started bawling my eyes out, because I'm like, I was so petrified that there was this presence in the room that I had no control over, and like within my own dream world. So I'm like, can it happen that yes, things come into your dreams 100%? They have cases with which I've rarely felt, but I've had experiences too where it's like that frozen state as well, where it's just like things are lingering. And my mom, bless her, she has a lot of these awarenesses where it's like people will come and visit her, like spirits or ghosts or whatever you want to call it, come and visit her. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're your ancestors, sometimes they're other beings kind of just walking around. Maybe they're your spiritual guides, your angels, your blah, blah, blah. The list goes on and on of how many people can actually come visit you. But and then sometimes I'm like, they are just as present who are up to no good, and
Yeah.
just want to kind of fuck around with you. And the thing is, it's like, because you're aware that they're there, either it's subconsciously, consciously, it doesn't matter at the end of the day. Because I'm like, consciously, I was aware, I'm like, something in this house is giving me the offs. I'm like, my subconscious made it actually as a presence that is somebody. Protection is very important in dreams. And so it's just like for you to dream walk into other people's dreams, I'm like, hey, I hope you have some good respect. And it's just like also putting up your boundaries against it as well. And my belief system is just like, it's more of a, I guess, shamanic style as well, where it's like the dream world is just as important as the spiritual world as it is the conscious and the thing is, I'm like, it's all just different worlds. We're just traveling through them. I'm like, most shamans will actually ask you when it comes to your body, mind, spiritual health, like, hey, how's your dreams been? Because the thing is,
Right.
it's like then they can peek into your subconscious as well as your
Right.
spiritual and emotional body, because that can
Right.
actually lead into a lot.
Mm.
So I'm
Okay.
like, it's hard to really say, like, does it just separate all into different areas? Because I'm just like, yes and no. Because I'm like, you can go ahead and take everything as a separate account, but I'm like, if you take a more holistic approach to it, I find that you can actually dive into more of a synergetic balance within your dream world.
Cool. I had
So
like
yeah,
so
sorry,
many.
that was my very long answer for that.
Yeah, I don't even know what the question was anymore, but that was really good. I had so many like ideas that sparked, and one of them, like I've definitely had that experience where there's like some kind of like unwanted
Mhm.
presence or like a petrifying incident where like I'm really scared, and then there's like an actual energetic thing
Yeah.
that has arrived. And it's not, and I know it's not a projection out of my mind. I'm like, this is something else.
That's actually quite common though, because I'm just like, so that subconscious piece of you, it's like you don't have to be a mystic, a channeler, like we all have it. The thing is, it's like there's that awareness within inside of us that there is something, you get the heebie-jeebies, you get the like the gut of like, something's up, or it's just like you feel it. And the thing is,
Mhm.
we've been taught as a as our Western mindsets have been taught that it's just like, no, 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 like find the logical explanation. But then it's just like we feel crazy because it's just like, but I feel this and I sense this and I need to say, like, you need to go kind of idea. Wandering spirits, same thing. I'm like, they have to listen to boundaries as well. They work with them too, being like, you're not supposed to be in here. It's time to go. There's some stubborn ass spirits, don't get me wrong, that is just like a pain in the ass, but they could also be connected to the land, the thing, or like
Yeah.
serving a purpose there as well. So, and we can get into the nightmare piece too, because I'm like that
I
gets
was gonna
into
say,
that.
it feels like a
Yeah.
natural segue into nightmares. So, like in my experience with nightmares, there's like scary dreams that are
Yep.
scary, and you're like, oh my God, that was so unpleasant, and then I was scared. And then there's like nightmares where you're like
Mm-hmm.
petrified and super just that like terrified feeling. It's just extra. Like it's like a
Mm.
nightmare on steroids. Like
Yeah.
I don't know if you've had both of these or you can speak to the difference, or is that just a natural scale that
So
exists?
no, so there's a few of them because I'm like nightmares are twofold. I find because I feel like there's many folds and it's very specific for different people. But for the most part, nightmares are trying to bring things up inside of you that either you're trying to bury inside of you that you don't want to look at, see that it's become a demon, or that it's something where you don't want to look at, and that it's become such a big thing in your subconscious that you're just trying to avoid. And so you've made this a big monster to
Mm.
go ahead, or a terror of like a physical reaction of like, oh my God, like something you have to do, say this, that, whichever else that end up terrifying you. What I would say is like, if you have the spiritual side of like things coming in kind of idea, it's like, what are the external influences right now that you're scared of that are shifting and happening? And then looking at the other things within the dream to be able to like, okay, what is it that it could pertain to? Going in even deeper, it could also be past lives, where it's just like these terrifying, like we actually can bring in our past life memories with inside our, not the memories, but like a soul memory, I guess is the best way to explain it. And you can actually have these deep, deep fears brought in from the past lives themselves that actually have nothing to do with a fear that you consciously have within this life, but could actually be brought over from a past life that you're trying to clear or shift or let go of within this life. So I'm
Okay.
like, for instance, some of my, like, I'll call them nightmares, when I'm scared in my dreams, I'll use my. It's funny because I ask my dreams to be very literal because I'm like, if not, you guys get too airy fairy, and I have no idea what's going on. But for instance, I used to have these dreams where, in the house, and depending where I am in the house, it's the house of my body, and so different rooms are different compartments within yourself. And for instance, my different rooms are based off of the chakra systems because that's how I navigate a lot of my energetics as well. So, for instance, if I'm in the attic, I know that I'm in the third eye slash like crown place. If I'm in the basement, I'm going into the root. Heart is usually a
Oh,
mix of like the bedroom or the kitchen. I find are two of them for heart. Throat, it depends. Same thing. Kitchen, as well as um, other areas. I'm like, if you go outside into like a backyard, yeah, yeah, please.
that's the question. Did you like bring that language deliberately into your dream world, or did you like discover that that's what was happening? Or
I
did like,
discovered that one.
okay, because that's really cool. Because that's like that's a way of building a language with your subconscious where you can begin to understand what it's trying to say to you. It was doing that, and then you figured it out, right?
And that's it. That's why it's like building the practice. Cause I'm like, as I said, like it works for me because I'm like, oh, that just makes sense, the body. Though some people notice that if they actually make it a focus, that it's like, hey, can we actually focus that X, Y, and Z, it's like it gives the brain actually more of a tool to be able to navigate. Be like, oh, okay, she wants to know about this. Then the conscious and subconscious are speaking together, like, hey, we need to speak the same language. How do we make sure that I understand the dreams that are coming through? And then it's actually building that thing. But it's like a relationship of any sort. So it's just like, for me, I discovered it because uh, just how the journey ended up going. Though I'm like, cut a few corners and take a couple hints and just like, hey, if you can be like, hey, my basement is my root chakra and I'm going to deal with X, Y, and Z when it comes to root chakra stuff, when it comes to this. I'm like, but you have to find the language that works for you because that's the language that works for me. But it's just like
Right.
everyone's language is a bit different.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so within this, my root chakra, I ended up having a nightmare that it's just like there was demons in there and there was things that
Mhm.
just were stuck or that were hiding on shelves. And it's interesting because I'm like, well, if you think of root chakra, it's like family, home, survival. It's a very primal energy. And like things like demons and nightmarish things. And I didn't want to go down that. I didn't want to look at those things from and like family stuff and home stuff that I didn't want to look at. And I just shelved it on a like I've gone ahead and just shelved these little demons or energetic like icks, if you will, so that I
Ooh.
could be comfortable. And it's like spirit and my subconscious or um, healing journey was telling me like, hey, you have these things on your shelves you need to look at, kind of idea. And so it's
Oh,
like if you look at your fears and the things that you're trying to avoid, you can go ahead and start clearing them up. So it's like
yeah.
once you start being like, okay, there is some deep shit that I have to look at that I'm needing to like dive into, you can start bringing that out. And you can start, yeah, building that language within you to be able to make it more specific as well.
That's so cool. I love
Yeah.
that. Okay, so nightmares are like, I mean, they're messages for you because they kind of they when you have them once in a while, they feel like they feel really assaulting. It just feels like a really mean thing that happened to you. And you're just
Mm,
like, wow, that sucked. And you're like, I hope that doesn't happen
mm,
again. But like really there's messages there. It's not just trying to torture you
yeah.
like senselessly. Like,
And the thing is, too, it's just like, as a whole, we don't like pain, we don't like fear, we don't like the negative emotions, but they are just as important as the positive ones. And I think the thing is, it's like when it comes to nightmares, if you can turn your darkness or your poison into medicine, it's like I think that's a beautiful thing to be able to like hold and knowing that you can take those nightmares and those pains, those hurts, those things that no one wants to look at and really heal it and shift it so that you can learn from it. I'm like, we'd be able to like grow and build and like do so much, I think. So,
I have a question. Okay.
yeah, answers.
So, yeah, I just remembered this. So, I had a friend who was this very big skeptic on all kinds of things, and he had
Love.
night terrors.
Mm,
And he said he went, so he had night terrors for like many, many years. Like they came on in his adult years, but they'd just been there, and he said he went to this girl's house and she had crystals everywhere, and he was talking about his night terrors, and she said, just pick a crystal and take it home and put it under your pillow.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, well, which one? And she said, just you pick one, like pick
Mm-hmm.
whichever one you think you like.
Mm-hmm.
And so he picked up this, I think it was a citrine, and he's like, whatever, it's a rock, I don't care.
Yeah.
He said he just did it to be like not polite, but like she looked like she was really trying to help. So
Yeah.
anyway, he was like, we're gonna put this rock in my bed, like what the hell. And then he said that he did this that night, and it was the first night in many years that he didn't
Mm-hmm.
have a night terror, and he was blown away. And now, from just forever, if he sleeps with citrine in the bed, he doesn't
Mm.
have night terrors.
Yeah.
And so this, it comes into two questions for you. It's like, because I know we're talking about like dreams and nightmares having messages for us, but
Mm-hmm.
then like what is the influence of these external things that we might be able to do, even like not just crystals, but maybe oils, like essential oils, maybe like what about like maybe different teas that they say, like dream enhancing teas? Like there's these external things that we can do that affect our dream space, and like how does that all work?
Mm-hmm. Oh my God, I think that's such a amazing question. I'm like, firstly, I'm like, everything has an energetic charge to it. Two atoms rubbing together, it's just like everything has a vibration to it, right? And so our vibration and our, what I call like our aura, is the best way I can think about it, is like it's trying to fill in the gaps. So for instance, I'm like, if you have a gap in your auric field, I'm like, and citrine, and you're like, oh, this is a nice feeling crystal. You don't know why you gravitated, but it feels good, kind of idea. It's usually because it's filling a gap within your energetics. The vibration of it is what your actual body is needing. So it's like able to promote more of a balanced state for you. So I'm like, the crystal itself, I'm like, because it's even funny going into like crystals. I'm like, there's specific dream crystals you can use, but I'm like, interesting. Like, I wouldn't have used citrine as a dream crystal because I'm like, citrine's like, for me, it's like abundance, money, bringing in more of solar plexus energy, like empowerment. Actually, well, I could see it being that for him, like maybe needing more empowerment, which dives into the solar plexus, which I'm like, from the sounds of it, control might have been something that he was dealing with, like being able to let go of control and just allow himself. Because I'm like, if he's a very logical person, I'm like, and who just thinks it's a bunch of woo woo, I'm like, he might need to let go of control a little bit and know that it's okay to just flow into life a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, it depends. So it's like, and so, but also citrine would be great for control and letting go of a bit of control and understanding that there's a natural state, a natural flow of life. So I'm like, citrine wouldn't suggest it for it, but I'm like, fuck, if it works, use it. I'm also just like there's very specific crystals I would use, like amethyst, beautiful, more of a calming, relaxation, zen kind of dream state, as well as working more in the third eye and crown, which I would recommend for dreams. Is like you're more diving into this realm than you are into the lower areas, though you don't have to make it specific towards that. Dunbarite is one of my other favorite, like soft, dreamy crystals, which is like a nice pink, soft pink crystal, and it's very good for balancing the two worlds. But then you can also take any crystal, like clear quartz, where it's like you can set the intention with like, hey, clear quartz, like I want to work on these dreams and like really focus on bringing this forward. And like dream enhancing teas, it's interesting. I was skeptical at first, but when I started actually like drinking tea and then going to bed, I was like, yeah, okay, they're more vivid. I agree. So it's like I'm like, mugwort's a great one. Mugwort I use a lot of the time. It's just fabulous. I'm like, I can't remember the properties. And if you take my dream course, you can go ahead and we'll dive more into the properties itself. Blue lotus is a phenomenal one. Same with oils. Blue lotus is a great one for dream work. The ancient Egyptians, I know, used it quite often to be able to dive into a softer state or more of a psychoactive state. For herbs, yeah. So the dream teas I would recommend: chamomile, kava, ashwagandha. It's all relaxating. So it's just like relaxing the body, relaxing the mind, so that you can allow yourself to go deeper into it. So I'm like, even if it just has a physical aspect of relaxing the body, I'm like, if you're more relaxed, I'm like, you're more willing and happy to dream as well. Because I'm like,
Yeah.
if the physical body is too tired, you most likely don't dream as much when your physical body is just like exhausted. But if it has those aids to help the body relax more, you can actually allow yourself to dream more and more vividly as well. So it's like anything to promote inner calmness can help it, but it can also like amp shit up too. Because I'm like, you can get clary sage, which is known as the one of the third eye oils for essential oils, and that gives in really, really vivid dreams and like intense dreams. I find almost too intense, where I'm like, I kind of want to dial it down a notch. But then you get lavender, which is just a soft and subtle, beautiful. It's actually known as one of the Dreamweaver oils, lavender. So it works well with the. I think there's a herbal deck, herbal and astrology deck. I can't remember the name of the artist, and she actually says that lavender for dream and spider is actually one of the most phenomenal ones, because I'm like, you have spiders where I think in indigenous culture where it's just like you've got dream catchers. Dream catchers came from spiders, and being able to catch and protect you in your dreams, to catch all the things, and you're supposed to hang them above your bed so it can catch all the not good dreams. And it's like you're supposed to put them in the sun afterwards to clear the energy of the dreams that are coming forward. But it was actually came from the spider itself that they received the message to be able to help within their dream work, in their dream world, so that it says protection as well as to be able to filter through and clear dreams, if anything needed to get caught and cleared.
Wow.
So dream catchers, phenomenal. Crystals, honestly, you can use any, but I'm like amethyst, denberite, clear quartz. I think one of my favorite, iolite is a nice one, which works really close with the third eye as well. Oils, clary sage, blue lotus, lavender would be like my top three. Chamomile is also really, really nice to use. And like, yeah, just something to bring in your body and your mind more into a relaxed state, to be open up pathways to be able to dive deeper into the subconscious. And then teas, I'm like straight up just mugwort. Like I'm a big mugwort fan. I'm like there's other things, but I'm like,
How
as
does
I've
it
mentioned
taste?
before, but
Does it
I'm just
taste
like,
mugwort
it's
taste
very herbaceous.
okay. It sounds like it would
So it's
be
like very, very
terrible.
herby.
Okay. Sure.
No, it's not too bad. Like I actually quite like it. It's a very herby taste. So like you can throw rose petals in, lavender in with it, and that could be a very more heart opening, very much more like calming, heart opening. You can throw um basil in it. Oh, actually, I can never say it right. Tulsi basil is actually really good for dream. Tulsi holy basil is actually really good for dream work as well. Like that's my those are my like core, I would say. But then you can play with it too, because I've had it where I'm like, I'm going to try this for dream work, and ended up not working at all, or didn't like it at all. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I also gave a friend once like a clear quartz skull to put under her bed for dreams, and she was like, "I am never doing that again. I had nightmares all night because of this skull." And I was like, "Oh yeah, that makes sense." Just like skulls do maybe represent death. Maybe that isn't the best one to suggest to you. So I'm like, bless you, Marcella. Sorry I did that, but like, I'm like that would be one that I would say I'm like maybe not, but I'm like you can always have fun with it as long as your intention's very clear. I'm like with any of the plant medicine or crystals or any of the other attributes, and like even your dream catchers too, making sure to have those to cleanse and clear. And if you can find one from a beautiful local indigenous artist, I would highly, highly recommend it too.
I was extrapolating these things out because some of them, like the teas specifically, like work on your physical body. And then, like the crystals, for example, this was one because I used to be a skeptic, which I love because my life as a skeptic has like skepticism with curiosity is where we get to like the heart of like actual ideas. Like
Yeah.
when there's no belief in me, like I actually can like the unbiased way that I can discover things is I find like really powerful.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like a skeptic on crystals before, and I'm like, well, it's a rock. So like,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but
Oh,
what
I
has
get it.
what has to happen with everyone and everything is that you have to have your own experience with it, because you
Yes.
can hear people and you can hear all the anecdotes and you're like,
Yeah.
cool, and you're like, okay, but then like what you have to do is suspend your disbelief, say like
Mm-hmm.
maybe there's something to this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just gonna try, and then like you'll probably find out some really cool stuff. So like I had my experiences with crystals that I was like, I don't know why this is working because it's a
Mhm.
rock, but this
Mhm.
rock is doing the thing that is it's described to be good for. And I was like, weird. And like, and so um, what I've come to understand is that like everything, you've already said this, but everything has a frequency. The
Mhm.
human body has a frequency. A frequency is the fact that everything is like atoms in motion, right? In
Mhm.
some kind of different denomination and organization and vibration. Everything is essentially doing the same thing on the quantum level.
Mhm.
And when we talked about citrine, sort of like filling in almost like a part of that person that was sort of underdeveloped or like missing in a way or needed strength. Like we have these energetic bodies, we have these frequencies, we're almost like this instrument. And then there's these other things coming in. Yes, a rock, like, yes, this glass, yes, like kind of anything with its frequency interacts with us. Everything is interacting with us energetically, like everything.
Mhm.
And crystals, because of their history on the earth
Mhm.
and the transformations they have gone through different types of matter, like to become what they've become, they are really like charged up in a really interesting way.
Mhm.
Like, and they interact with our energy field in certain ways. And it's going to be a little different for everyone because we're all kind of different. And so, I mean, like, I'm not preaching to you necessarily, but I'm just like, this is the concept
Oh,
of
of
like,
course. No, this is, I'm like, please. I'm like, this is exactly where I'm like, yeah, girl, preach. I'm like, I'm right here with you.
this is like how the mechanism by which like a crystal can affect like your dream space or anything in your health is because there is an interaction of energies that is just unseen. And it's time, everybody, that we start recognizing the unseen energies
Yeah.
because we're really that way of like being limited to just our really
Mhm.
like dense five senses is blocking us off to
Yeah.
understanding this human experience on a greater scale. So let's just like open up our belief and realize that everything around us is interacting with us. And so
100%.
things like crystals can have medicinal properties, or it could be like this crystal skull and it could be like, well, that was not the medicine I needed. That did something adverse. So it's not
Mhm.
necessarily to say like everything's going to be good. Or maybe, yeah, maybe
Yeah.
somebody does drink mugwort and it like for some reason maybe made them feel agitated. Like it's not like
Mhm.
everything is affecting everybody differently. So it's this grand life experiment that we kind of
What I
have to
love
go.
too is like sometimes I'm like, you don't even have to be consciously aware that it's just like, oh, this is a rock, it's just there. I'm like, hey, as long as you like it and it's just like you think it looks pretty, that works too. I'm like, there's a reason that you grabbed it, and I'm like, you can just leave it at that too. Like the thing is, it's like we can bring in the awareness and being more open, or it's just like you can just also just enjoy it because you enjoy it. And I'm
Mhm.
like, if you have like a complete, well, that goes into a whole other conversation, like a complete adversity against it. I'm just like, that's a whole other conversation to be had. But I'm like, but if you like it, I'm just like, enjoy it then. I'm like, there's no, you don't have to have an explanation sometimes. I think we also want that explanation, but I'm like, you can just enjoy it for the sake of enjoying it too.
Yeah.
So, and
I'm trying to
the thing
combine
is,
those.
if it works, I'm like, and if it works, like, use it.
That's what
I'm
I'm
like, so
saying.
what
Like
if it's a rock? I'm just like, use it. If it works for you, use it. I'm like, hey, it could be a placebo. You can believe whatever you want. That's fine. If
the
it works, it
placebo
works.
effect, the placebo effect is the best thing that
Yeah.
exists.
Yeah. I'm
The
like, are you
fact
happier and you're healthier? Great.
Yeah. And I'm also trying to like combine that thing where like I just I analyze to a certain extent, but then I just
Yeah.
accept like it's natural to like think and try to like want to know the mechanisms behind how things work, but then it's really healthy just to let that go and just live your life. So we briefly did mention like almost like that dream within a dream type idea.
Hmm.
And sometimes it's happening in a nightmare situation, but sometimes that just happens in a regular dream and you're like, you wake up and you're like, oh, that was a dream, but you're still in the dream. And sometimes
Hmm.
that happens like so many times. Do you have an idea of what that is or why that is?
Oh, so it depends. It could be different levels of the conscious and subconscious. So it could be, yeah, because it could be like the layers of subconscious that you're going through that you could actually be waking up dream with inside of the dream.
So you're just
Um,
really deep in the layer of that dream.
yeah, like you could be like really deep into like the subconscious, and like depending on how relaxed you are, like what's been going on, it's like you could just be really deep with inside of it, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, let's wake up, and you're like, oh, we're just in the other area. It could be sometimes that it's just like you're waking up, but it's just like your body's not, or your mind's not ready to wake up, and your body's like, okay, but we need to start waking up, and it's trying to bring you out, and it's just like it's trying to be in this world, but it's just like,
Okay.
okay, but the brain, but the mind, we left it behind. Like, can we wait, bring it with us? It's like, let's get it. Whereas, like, sometimes if it's left in the subconscious somewhere else, it's just like, oh, she's lost. She'll wake up eventually, kind of idea.
So it's like an error in waking. You're like, okay, everybody, get on the same page. We're gonna try one
Yeah.
more time.
And it could be that too, where it's just like the different levels of the conscious body, the subconscious, the mind, the spirit, all trying to get up. They're like, wait, where are we?
Yes. Yeah, yeah. You're like, okay, take two. All right, take
Take
three.
two.
Okay, come
Yeah.
on, everybody, you can do it this time.
All
Okay.
right, this time we got it.
Yeah, okay, that's funny. I like that. How about this? Dreaming practically and dreams as a creative channeling place.
Mm.
And so Einstein was a vivid dreamer. The periodic table was dreamed. Cher dreamed her outfits. I've dreamed full projects into existence. Google was a dream by Larry Page. And after he dreamed it, he made it. And like we're talking about dreams as this like, oh, this metaphorical space where we're trying to like figure out the messages and it's kind of like
Mhm.
confusing. We have to learn the language of our dreams and it's all shrouded in mystery. But sometimes it's like, boom, here's your massive download idea.
Yeah.
And it's like, what say you about that? Because that's amazing.
Oh, I love it. That's where I get into the intention setting and stuff like that. It's just like it's even to the point where it's just like you can dream up anything that you really truly want. It's such a creative space because the thing is, it is something where you're accessing a part of your mind that we don't actually have full access to all the time. Because the thing is, it's like just to think of creative thing. Well, we do, like, we can access creative thoughts all the time, but I'm like, but our everyday kind of, if you will, waking life gets complicated. We got to feed ourselves, we got to make sure that we got coffee, we got to go to work, we got to do all these things. And so sometimes we dream world is our place that we can actually go and create and live a different life. Even other people could be like, oh, I would love a solution to this kind of idea, or I really would love to, like, for instance, like your project that you had to do for work. It's just like allowing that to come forward is a way to actually bring in creative plans, where it's just like maybe it's too much to take on in the conscious aspect with everything else that's going on in your waking life, that your actual subconscious will take it on and be like, well, I got an idea for you. Have you tried this? It's just like
Yeah.
everything else is like quiet right now. Like the rest of the world is quiet. So it's like allows that space for you to actually go and get creative and play and have fun with it. Some of them too are just literal, like, spirit just bringing in downloads too, because I think that's also something where it's just like God, spirit, universe, whatever you want to call it, Allah, I'm like Krishna, whoever you want to call it, it doesn't matter. I'm like, it is coming from a place that is higher than yourself, and it's like, bring it down. It's coming from somewhere. Where it is, oh, I'm like, God, universe, whatever. I'm like, doesn't matter. Or even just like the creative consciousness, if you want to think of it. I'm like, it's all trying to come in because it's like there's something that as a whole we might actually need to experience, see, and so forth.
There's
So does that
something.
make sense, or does that answer?
Yeah, yeah. There's something, this isn't really about dreams exactly anymore, but there's something so cool about like tapping into the collective subconscious
Mm-hmm.
because we also see a lot of like thematic eras in fiction where like everyone's obsessed with superheroes and
Yeah.
and then everybody's obsessed with vampires and then everybody's
Yeah.
obsessed like we have these like waves of fiction that everybody is just like obsessed with,
Mm-hmm.
and like a lot of artists and writers will just get like tap into that wavelength, and all of this very similar stuff comes out at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
and you're like, oh, everyone's like, who copied who, or like whatever, but it's like
Mm-hmm.
no one's copying anyone. They're like feeling the
Yes.
need for these types of messages, and then they're on that wavelength, and then they're providing that creative uh, submission of that.
Oh, 100%.
So cool. And I know because like 100%, this is funny. 100% of my great ideas already exist.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm great at tapping in to the best new idea that somebody's already made. Like I'll be like,
I
oh,
love it.
I'm like, my mind will be blown. I'm like, I'm a genius. Like, oh, this is the best idea. And then I'm like,
Why did I
Google
think
it.
of this? Yeah.
Yeah, I Google it and I'm like, oh, it's a thing. Oh, it is a really a thing. Oh, this is like, oh, it's kind of popular. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
okay. Well, it felt like my original idea because I've never heard of it, but it just like
Yeah.
gets to the place in our collective conscious that I'm hearing it.
Yes. Oh, 100%. And the thing is too, it's like, and it could be the fact that it's just like you really need it too, and you're like, oh, like I really could use this, and then someone's like, don't worry, I got you. But then also like, can you think of a better way? Can you think of a more creative way?
Yeah.
Or one that works more towards you too? And so it's like,
Yeah.
I love it. And then being challenged on it, and then it goes into a whole other thing. I'm just like, woo.
Yeah, yeah. Not so dreams anymore, but like it's cool that these ideas come through our subconscious, and that often can be in dreams. And then
Which I think
there
is interesting.
are,
I think it's like the subconscious and the dream world. It's like that's kind of two worlds. And it's like my approach is very more holistic as well. So I'm just like, it might be that I'm like Einstein needed to think of the periodic table because it's like that's what was really needed for the whole as a consciousness, that we just like tapping into that from a greater place, and it was able to download it from the dreams because I'm
yeah,
like, it's just another outlet for us to, yeah.
yeah. Or it's almost like if we're working on a puzzle in our conscious life, like something we can't figure
Mm-hmm.
out, the pieces come together in the unconscious space, because it's actually the guy who invented the periodic table, Dimitri, I can't remember what his name was actually, but he, in his day, like in his actual three-dimensional life, he had written all of the elements on cards, and he like had them
Mm.
all, and then in his dream space, like it like arranged them. And then he woke
Beautiful.
up and he had seen this like vision of all of the elements on a
Yeah.
table, which he didn't think of doing it that way. So
Mm.
it was like he was trying to figure something out,
Yeah.
and then his subconscious was like, how about this?
Yeah. And tapped into maybe like that inner child was just like, hey, it'd be easy if we did this. And then the inner child's like, oh, yeah, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
It's like, well, let's make it simple. Let's put it just all in one
Um,
place.
can you imagine how complicated scientists make things? Like,
Oh,
you know,
100%. You've got this. Stop making it so complicated. Like, what are you doing?
totally. But yeah, I just love that ability for dreams to also like help us continue working on things that we're trying to problem solve in our day,
Yeah.
you know? And that
Oh,
time that
100%.
like I was in school and I was having like, it was just so overwhelming. Like you're young and you're broke and you're in school and you're working, and you're probably, if you're me, you're partying. Like, so I just woke up one morning and I like had, my brain had fully actualized this whole project outline idea that I really needed. And it was
Mm.
so detailed and it was so usable. Every part of it was it, great. And I was like, oh my God, I got like my pen and I'm like, yeah. Oh, and then what? Oh yeah. And then, okay, there's my
Oh, I
project. And
love
like, but I needed that because I was too busy in my
it.
conscious
Hmm.
life to make the time for that.
Yeah. And the subconscious actually takes it on a lot, and then it actually helps solve a lot of things in our dream time. And that's where I was just like getting into it. I'm like, your brain was most likely like, oh God, just give her the answer so that we can take one thing off of our plate.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I was like, that was really kind of it because like it hasn't done that ever since. Like as long as I make as long as I'm making time for everything in my conscious life, I don't
Mm,
really, my dream space doesn't provide me with anything that I feel like is practical in that way.
yeah.
It's just very much that like mysterious, like metaphorical, artistic language of the body type idea. I just wonder how many like prolific ideas have been dreamed that nobody ran with because they were like,
Yeah. They're like, oh,
oh,
well, how would I do
like
that?
that.
Or it's maybe.
Yeah, they're like, that's epic, but like, what am I supposed to? How am I
Hmm.
supposed to bring this
I think
in?
the thing is too, it's like it'll most likely go to the next person. It'll be like, okay, well, next person. If you're not going to take it on, this person might.
Totally
Until
okay because
maybe it could be like till the next person that they're like, oh, they've got it, and the other person's like, oh my god, why have I never thought of that? It's because it's just like it was filtering through like 10,000 people. Yeah,
like the idea can be trying to like download into like a lot of people, and they're
yeah,
just seeing who's gonna pick it up.
yeah. It's like it wants to come through. It's just like
Yeah.
showing like, okay, who is it? Who's gonna grab it?
Ooh, that's so
Right.
neat. Yeah, I love
I
that.
love it. It's like this goes into a whole other conversation, which I'm like,
It
I'm here for
really
it.
does. Oh my God. I want to do a whole episode on like downloaded stuff, like
Oh
downloaded
my god,
systems,
channeling
downloaded,
informations in this.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
And
that'd be
like just
great.
like the epic stuff that has just been like psh, like come
Hmm.
through people. Before I wanted to do this episode with you, I was like, I don't know. I sometimes don't dream for months. If I sometimes I
Mm.
dream and they're all fuzzy and half formed and I can't really remember them or I forget them immediately upon waking. And so how am I supposed to like how am I supposed to just dream better? But like
Mm.
the advice maybe to people who are just like, yeah, dreams are fascinating and I want to dream more. It's like maybe a couple key pieces of advice. And I would say, like, from my experience, is actually just like as you're falling asleep, like put
Yeah.
the intention that you want to remember. And then, like, anything else, like a
So
couple
yeah, I
tips.
would highly recommend just purely that, just setting the intention to dream journaling as well. Once you start actually putting it on paper, the brain starts making it a note, even if you remember just hey, I dreamed fuzzy today kind of idea. And just putting down the intention that is just like you're trying to dream and you're trying to do dream recall, sets the mind into starting to be like, oh, fuck, we need to remember this. My old trick that my mom actually taught me, who learned from, I think, her mother as well, is drinking a glass of water before bed, like just a little bit, like nothing that you're gonna like get up and pee in the middle of the night, but like just a little bit, just before you go to bed, and then just as you wake up. Water actually dives into the subconscious and being able to um, hit the more emotional and mental barriers to clear things through as well as shift things through in the body. It kind of resets and cleanses the system with like, oh, we drank water. Oh, we wanted to dream. What's our dreams? And then it hits the water again and then you can circle it back.
Right.
So drinking a glass of water before and after bed would be a good one. Before sleep and after sleep.
On the same idea as the water, I have this like spray. It's like, a mix of different oils or whatever.
Yeah.
And I was like intuitively just like, how about I'll just like spray this before I fall asleep? Like that's the smell I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna fall asleep to. And then it's there in the morning. I didn't think about spraying it in the morning, but I was like wondering that's kind of the same
Oh,
concept, right?
100%.
It's like
100%.
a
And
biological
actually, because if you have the oils as well with it, scent is actually our strongest memory unlocking keys because it's a direct link into the brain. Unlike when you smell, it goes directly to the brain. It's like everything else, we have something that needs to carry the message to the brain, where it's like if you touch, it goes through a nervous system. If you see something, it goes through the eyes, and the eyes have to process it into the brain. Whereas the nose and smelling is the direct link into the brain. And so it's just like for you, if you do it, actually most likely be more powerful because I'm like you have that, oh, I'm remembering, I need to remember my dreams, and the scent actually will kickstart the brain a bit faster actually too.
That's so cool. Oh my God, this conversation has been so juicy. It was so awesome. So thank you so much.
Of
And
course, thank you.
I'm gonna put everybody like how to contact Emma below and everywhere so that you can find her. She's amazing, and I said multi gifted, not just like dream journey channeling magician, priestess, like everything. And it's just amazing. And thank you for being here. And
Oh no.
I
Thank you
appreciate
so much. Absolutely. Oh my God. This was such a pleasure, such a treat.